The opinions and viewpoints expressed in .NET Rocks are not necessarily those of its sponsors, or of Microsoft Corporation, its partners, or employees. .NET Rocks is a production of Franklin's Net, which is solely responsible for its content. Franklin's Net, training developers to work smarter. Hey, Rockheads! Stop logging internal secrets and listen up. It's time for another stellar episode of .NET Rocks, the internet audio talk show for .NET developers with Carl Franklin and Richard Campbell. This is Jeff Maciolik, here to announce show number 103 with guests Chris Anderson, Steve Cellini, Carter Maslin, Karsten Januszewski, Jeff Sandquist, and Tim Sneed. Recorded live Friday, March 4th, 2005. .NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net, training developers to work smarter, and now offering hands-on VBNet, ASP.NET, and C# classes online at www.franklins.net. And by Data Dynamics, makers of ActiveReports.net. Simple, powerful, and cost-effective reporting for Windows Forms and ASP.NET web applications online at www.datadynamics.com. Support is also provided by Code Magazine, the leading independent magazine for .NET developers, online at www.code-magazine.com. And now, the guy who wishes he thought of the whole mustache thing, frickin' genius, Carl Franklin.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. This is Carl Franklin. You'll listen to .NET Rocks, podcasting almost live from New London, Connecticut on the East Coast of the United States. And the West Coast .NET Rocks department tonight, Richard Campbell, my co-host. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, sir, and in a bright and shiny place. It's much nicer in Vancouver than it is over on the East Coast, I hear.
Yeah, it's a little weathery, yucky, kind of snowy slushy here.
We had record high temperatures yesterday.
I'm not even going to say what I'm thinking, man. That sucks. I spent most of my day on the tarmac.
Oh, yeah, you've been traveling all day. We keep IMing each other as you get from one airport to the next.
And you know what's annoying as hell? When you go into an airport and you get to the gate, and you know how you're looking around for an outlet because there's only like 2 outlets in the whole gate area, right? If that. Some of them don't even have outlets. And so you're sitting in there, and there's only one, and there's some guy right next to it who's on the phone. He doesn't even using it, but he's plopped himself down right in front of it. And he's on the phone, so you can't like go up to him and interrupt him and say, dude, can you scoot over just a minute so I can, there's nobody else in the place. So I'm sitting there, not able to get online, watching this guy talk on the phone and using, sign language and hand language and all this other stuff. And I just didn't have the guts or the heart to interrupt him.
The trick is to hold the power cord like it's a garrote. Generally, I find people get away from me when I do that.
Yikes.
So, hey, how did that user group thing go?
It was great, actually. The more user groups I do for NETA, user group talks, and for the, 9% or 9 people listening who don't know what that's all about, the International .NET Association, which is an independent organization that helps user groups, and they get money from Microsoft to pay for speakers like Richard and I to go around and talk to user groups, .NET user groups, all over the U.S., some all over the world, and they pay our T&E if we decide to go speak. And so I went down to the Virginia.NET users group, and in Richmond, Roanoke. I'm sorry, not Richmond, Roanoke, in Roanoke, Virginia. So that was a good group, and I got there. And lately, I've been hearing this a lot. I've been hearing, I just started listening to .NET Rocks. The 100th show was my first show. I swear to God, there's like this whole new generation of listeners out there who started with show number 100. And for some reason, maybe because it was short, but it wasn't really short, was it? It turned out to be like an hour and a half.
Yeah, it was not that short a show.
Actually, it was closer to 2 hours, come to think of it. Well, okay, forget about that idea. But I don't know, maybe it's because it was funny and there was no content. Maybe that's what it was.
Ah, all right. That sounds reminds me of another show we do.
Yeah. But anyway, that was a fun show, and welcome if you're a new listener.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah. So what's your week been like, man?
I've had a pretty interesting week. I actually sat in and listened to a session done by a friend of mine, Ryan Storgard, who works at the Vancouver Microsoft office. He's doing this interop session that was developed by our friends, Ted Neward and Michelle Bustamante. Very interesting session. I'm going to get a chance to present in a couple of weeks, so I wanted to see how Ryan handled it. And they're showing some compelling stuff about making things interoperate between the Java and .NET worlds. And it happens to be that Vancouver has one of the major companies involved in the whole thing, a company called Intersys. I think I probably mispronounced the name. Anyway, they make a product that used to be called Janet. And it's wrappers around both .NET code and around EJB, Enterprise Java Bean, so they can interoperate. So one of their engineers came in and demonstrated some of their products.
That's really cool when you get to see an interop demo like that really works. Because, we've been talking about interop and, there's lots and lots of slideshow kind of talks on it. But you rarely get to see it done with two computers actually connected together and interoperating.
And something
live.
that Ted and Michelle really did well in these samples, and kudos to them, is show the warts in the whole process. You can always make a demo that works perfectly. What they did was they showed, your typical starting assumptions, which are wrong, and it doesn't work.
Right.
And so then you try this to fix it, and it doesn't work. And it's like a 6 or 8 step iteration before you finally find that point where these things actually interoperate the way they're supposed to.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a very complicated and long presentation. Ryan really was a trooper getting through it all. We had a big audience. There was about 150 people there, and about a third of them were Java guys. They'd invited the Java user groups as well to take a look, and it was remarkably civil.
Wow. Yeah, that's good. That's good. We're going to have Michelle on here sometime in the future, although I know she's booked way out, but we have her in the summer or something, right, to talk about this? Don't we?
Yeah, we were talking about it with her. I think it's going to be way out, and in a few months we'll talk about it. But I definitely want to get back to this because I'm really impressed with the material that she and Ted put together. It's a real honest demonstration of it. And Michelle's, in an interesting position, being, having a close relationship with BEA, one of the Java providers, as well as working with Microsoft.
Right. And she is a regional director too.
She is indeed.
Well,
the other thing I did this week that's kind of odd is last night I did a presentation at one of the local schools on internet safety for kids.
Yeah, you were talking about this before.
Yeah, I mentioned it last week, and I actually did the talk now. I had quite a few parents there, and, everybody's got a broadband connection, so there was we went long. I went 2 hours because I had so many questions.
Wow.
And talking about everybody's setups, I was insisting, you've got to go get a NAT router. You need a NAT router.
Right.
And talking about different service packs and a lot of software, configuring Google to restrict to more polite content, and plus looking at some of the search engines that kids should be using, like Yahooligans. Mm-hmm. It was a great session. I had a good time doing it. I'm going to polish it up some more, do it a few more times. And Microsoft Canada's expressed some interest in handing the content out to the RDs and doing it in a wider area.
Hey, did you by any chance talk about Dan Appleman's book on the subject?
I didn't, and that's a great idea. I should bring that up because he, of course, focuses more on the teen level stuff rather than the little kids.
But you know what, though? It's a misnomer. I mean, that book is good for anybody. It's good for anybody.
Really? I got to read it.
Yeah, in fact, he told me that's why it really didn't sell all that well. They did great press stuff, and it got a lot of great press. But it didn't sell that well because, for most teenagers would think it was over their head. And it really is a book for anyone on internet security. And he just... he works with teens, and he thought that might be a good angle, but it's a great book. It's a great book. Anyway.
Fabulous idea.
Yeah, and speaking of fabulous ideas, I do want to get started in talking to our guest because I'm really excited about this show. But before I do, I want to throw out an idea to you and to all the listeners that I had today. It's not a new idea, but everything when I decide to do something, it's new to me. So the idea is for us to do a broad geek interest podcast in the morning, which is not a sort of a bantery thing like .NET Rocks is, but more like a short laundry list of items that are in the blogs and in the news, the kinds of things that you go to Slashdot for, the kind of things that geeks would be interested in, and not just .NET geeks, but geeks of all kinds. And a sort of a 15 or 20 minute podcast just on the stuff that you can listen to on the way to work before you actually sit down at the computer and start surfing around. So if there's anything really interesting going on, we'll alert you to it. And I thought that might be a good thing to do every day, Monday through Friday. And I know it's a big commitment.
Like a morning newscast, really, for geeks.
Like a morning newscast, but instead of interview and commentary, which is a lot of what we do here, this would be sort of just, a straight sort of, here's what's going on today. More like some really quick soundbite almost laundry list of places to check out on the web today. Things that are going on. So I thought that
I think it's a fabulous idea.
Yeah, it would be good. And I plan on being an early riser here pretty soon anyway. I'm going to actually change my schedule all around. And instead of staying up late at night and driving everybody crazy, I'm going to get up early in the morning and drive everybody crazy. So I thought I might be able to do that. I'd like to hear your comments. Send them to .NETRocks@franklins.net if you have any ideas. That said, got anything else before we introduce the guests?
Oh, let's not hold them back anymore because I know they're just barely restrained.
I know. It's going to be a scary show.
Yes, it is.
So this week on .NET Rocks, we have Chris Anderson, a developer extraordinaire and code monkey to Donbox. I'm sorry, at the PDC, but that's another thing. From Microsoft and members of the platform technical evangelism team who are working on Longhorn and WinFX clients. Steve Cellini, Carter Maslin, Karsten Januszewski, Jeff Sandquist, and Tim Sneath. Welcome, guys.
Howdy.
You. Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. Now, Steve, you've been on. Carter's been on. Jeff's been on. Tim has not. Karsten has not. And Chris, yeah, I've been trying to get you on the show for a while. It's good to have you all here.
Oh, no. I have an issue to bring up first.
Okay.
Before we dive in. You've been claiming you were going to get me on this show for about 2 years now.
Right.
Every time I see you, you're like, hey, I want to get you on .NET Rock.
Right.
You never call. You never write.
It's not true, man. I left comments on your blog a couple of times because I didn't have your email address.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, Chris Ann. That's hard to figure out. It's at the top of my webpage.
I'm sorry. It really is a total sham because, it's not like I've got a list a mile long and I'm sitting there saying, nope. It's just like a pain in the ass to schedule all these people all the time. So usually they come to me. That's why. That's what happens. So sorry, man.
That's okay. I was too busy being a code monkey anyway, so,
I got to say, even though that was a while ago, that was one of the funnest PDCs that I've ever experienced. That was really fun.
That was a blast. I definitely, as I tell everybody, if you ever have the opportunity to launch a new platform in front of 8,000 developers, take the opportunity and do it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So what do you guys want to talk about these days? Longhorn, WinFX?
Yeah, we could talk about that stuff.
Avalon?
I've heard about that stuff.
Or do we just have to go read your blogs?
We talked about Longhorn. When was the .NET Rock show when we talked about Longhorn last?
Oh, geez. It was a few months ago, yeah.
Well, we could give you a little bit of update on Longhorn and WinFX.
Sure.
Sort of the overview quick. And last time we talked, and at the last PDC you guys were talking about, we showed you a version of Longhorn, and that was really two conversations. One was about the new operating system, and then there was also a conversation that we spent most of the time on, which was the new platform, Indigo, WinFS, and Avalon. And then last August, as you know, we sort of made a change to that plan,
right?
Separate out the operating system from the platform.
Yeah.
Now, the operating system, Longhorn, and the platform, WinFX, are still on the same schedule. They're going to ship at the same time in lockstep. But the big thing was that the platform now would go down level. At the last PDC, if you want to use the platform, you also had to use the operating system, Longhorn. Now this platform is going to go down level to XP, Windows Server 2003. That was one big change, and most of the people we talked to were very, very happy about that because it meant that they could use Avalon, for instance, on XP. And then another change is that WinFS got pulled out of that initial wave. So WinFS is still in the game, but it'll come around a little bit later. And this sort of gave them more time to come up with a more comprehensive story. The story they told at the PDC was mostly a client story, and now the story they're working on now is a client and server story.
Okay.
So that in a nutshell is really what's happened since the last time we talked, since the last PDC.
Mm-hmm.
I was at the announcement in August, and I remember thinking, if I was running an IT shop and somebody was confronting me with a new file system, and you're only going to provide it for my workstations, I'd be pretty nervous too. I'd much rather have it available for everything before I consider putting it in.
Yeah, the client and server side.
Yeah, I think they have to go together.
And that was, so the change we made, it was a difficult change to make. At the last PDC, we were sure about, that having this operating system as platform, shipping it as one more or less. But we got a lot of positive feedback, even though it was a difficult change to make. The WinFS story will be a more complete story now. We'd rather see it when it's more complete.
Right.
A lot of people said, it'd be pretty cool to see it, just on the client sooner rather than later. And then the fact that, Avalon and Indigo would go down level was a big deal too.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a huge bonus for developers. We're going to get a chance to get our hands into that sooner.
And the story for WinFS essentially was network support, right? When you say server side, you really mean interacting. When you want to do a search, you want to search across all of the drives that you're connected to as well.
No, that scenario was there, but it was more like if I was programming on the second tier, would I use different APIs than the data APIs that WinFS was offering me on the client?
Yeah.
Isn't that a little bit weird? And is it a different data model? Is it different APIs? Do I see things in the old, in the traditional SQL way, or do I see things more like items as WinFS was offering them to me on the client? It was really, part of the story.
I got you.
And, having a model where the API, the object model, the way items are viewed, have that be across the client and server tiers would be a good thing.
Is it tough to be a Longhorn evangelist these days?
Well, I think the Longhorn, the cow jokes, they still happen every once in a while, and the Longhorn license plate, that gets a little bit of attention now and then.
Uh-huh.
How about the rest of you guys, the other evangelists here? Is it tough being an evangelist?
Well, it's just been review time, and we just don't want to just say that it's easy being an evangelist. It's hard work, So.
Yeah, it's hard work.
What is it? It's hard. It reminds me of the presidential debates. It's hard work.
Right.
Wait, don't go there. The August reset with Longhorn was tough because we had been working with a lot of ISVs very closely, and to say we made a change in the plans, that was tough to do.
Yeah.
But the feedback, like I said, was almost unanimously, this is a great change. We'd rather see this stuff go down level and so forth.
To what level did the security story impact the development of Longhorn, the security SP2?
There's definitely some stuff there. I mean, we've spent a lot of time on trying to ensure that Longhorn is the most stable and secure platform around. So one of the things that Longhorn now is based on is the Windows Server 2003 Service Pack 1 code base. So we've basically taken all the innovations that were in Windows XP Service Pack 2, everything that then came into Windows Server 2003. So it's kind of building on everything that's gone before and then adding a bunch of new stuff. So,
cool.
So the goal is really to make it a really solid, secure operating system and just build in those things.
And this is Sir Tim talking here right now.
Yeah, we should probably. That was Sir Tim. Where are the trumpets? I thought we asked for trumpets.
And we were talking to Steve before, right?
That was Steve. Sorry, we should introduce ourselves. This is Steve.
Okay.
Certainly, SP2, will take a resource hit, a time hit, a resource hit. I think we've said that publicly. It was pretty big deal for everybody. But that was a while ago. SP2, when we were at the last PDC in October 2003, we were in the throes of SP2 for sure.
Right. Cool. Okay, so what? So you went from the pillars of Longhorn in the platform to the features, and what? Let's just replay that story for the listeners. What kinds of things are we going to be able to see as developers in terms of tools? On what kind of schedule? Like, what's going to be first? SDKs or things that we can play with, like Avalon or.
Chris, do you want to talk about the November Avalon CTP?
Yeah, sure. So this is Chris Anderson. I'm honored that you called me a developer because most of the devs on my team have started to refer to me as a management overhead. So it's exciting to still see some people consider that. But so we released in November, we released a community technology preview of Avalon. And basically what we did there is after the August announcement, we worked basically as hard as we could to get a build out as soon as we could, effectively. We announced publicly the Longhorn changes almost externally as soon as we did internally as well. We really wanted to be upfront with people and tell them what was going on there. And so the November release was really our first major milestone of where we got Avalon up and running on XP builds, and it got to a stability point where we could get it out to customers. We really wanted to get that out as soon as possible. And so that's been out. And then I think it was January, Steve, you can correct me if I'm wrong there, that we moved that from being just a kind of MSDN and PDC attendee sort of thing to a broadly available downloadable build of it. And upcoming here pretty soon, we're going to be releasing another CTP, the March CTP, which is kind of our just a refresh of those same bits with a bunch of new features and changes to it.
And that'll also include Indigo,
which is the big thing.
Okay.
Yep.
So this will be the first CTP for Indigo.
And it'll be based on, I believe, the Beta 2 build. Is that correct?
Okay.
Steve, of the Woodbey bits? Of the
Actually, no, it'll be based on what's known as called, this is Karsten here, called the February CTP build of Whidbey. So it's not the official Whidbey 2 build. It's a kind of interim build between Whidbey Beta 1 and Whidbey Beta 2.
Okay.
And that was Karsten.
Right.
And that just went live to MSDN subscribers today, and it'll go more public in a little bit here.
All right, I want to come back to Indigo because I'm really interested in that. But before we leave Avalon, the Avalon stuff that's coming out, let's just recap for it because it's been a while since we've had our heads around Longhorn, at least around here. The Avalon stuff is the graphics engine, but not necessarily the 3D compositing stuff. That's Arrow, right? What's the difference?
So Avalon's so the way I like to think about it is the Indigo and Avalon, basically Indigo lets you build software that talks to software. Avalon lets you build software that talks to people. And so all of the bits on your screen are really
Chris, do you want a job over here?
So all the pixels you see on the screen are really Avalon bits.
So Avalon is all the UI.
But there is a distinction, which is in the PDC build, you saw a bunch of this, a new window manager for Longhorn, which was this glass look with 3D effects to the windows themselves.
Right.
And now that is still a Longhorn feature. That is separate. That they use some shared technology from Avalon, but it's not. The bits that run on on XP are a new visual runtime. In the March CTP build that you get, there will be 3D effects, and you can project 2D stuff into 3D space and things like that. But you're not going to get a new window manager for XP.
And that's what Arrow is, right?
Yeah, moving forward, Arrow is the shell for Longhorn. So that's the kind of radical new UI that people saw in the PDC. And I guess probably at the PDC we weren't really clear as to the difference between Avalon and Arrow. And
that's why I'm confused.
XAML.
Yeah.
But at that time, of course, they were all shipping together anyway, so why would you?
So it almost didn't really matter, but it's probably important now as we have Avalon and XAML as part of that technology release available down level that we draw the distinction there. Arrow is the shell for Longhorn. That's one of the many new things in Longhorn that will make Longhorn a great upgrade.
I got it.
And Avalon and XAML being the object persistence, object graphing sort of language for building Avalon, or indeed some other objects, is really the distinction there.
And I hate to come back to fundamentals and stuff, but as I said, it's been a while, and there's probably a lot of listeners who haven't checked this out yet. The thing that I was talking to Kate Gregory about, and I find having a hard time wrapping my mind around, is that when this thing ships, when Longhorn ships, there's basically going to be a 100% managed code implementation of the Windows API. Is this right?
Avalon is 100% managed. Yes.
All right, Avalon.
I have to give.
Tell me what's really going on here.
Details that most people don't care about. So I think there's a really big distinction that you want to draw, which is one is what's the developer view of the platform,
right,
and the other is what's the underlying implementation.
Cool.
Because I think when you think about things like Avalon, like Indigo, like User 32, like GDI, like all of these things, you really have this two different views, right? So you can look at something like Windows Forms, which enables you to target the User 32 code base and build up graphical UIs, right?
Yeah.
And when we built Avalon, we started, instead of starting from User 32 and GDI and things like that, we really looked at building a much deeper new technology. And so we went down to basically DirectX as our low-level piece. And so, on top of DirectX, we have a bit of unmanaged code that does our composition engine, so kind of the low-level bit twiddling down there. And then on top of that, we have, the vast majority of the code that makes Avalon is all managed code.
Okay.
And if you look at, Indigo, it's much the same way, where the vast majority of their code is all managed. The key thing, though, is that for both platforms, the developer experience is wholly managed. So the only developer experience on those platforms is managed code.
Right. So when you create a graphics object, let's say, in a .NET 1.1 application, you're really using the framework's wrappers around the pinvoke stuff, creating a device context and all that. But when you're using Avalon, would you create a graphics object in Avalon? Like, would it be the same developer experience, or is there a new API?
There is a new API, but the developer experience is very similar.
Okay.
I actually used to work on the Windows Forms team, and we share a lot of we've had a principle of trying to, the way we say is leverage the developers of the platform. We really want you to be able to, if you programmed Windows Forms, you'll be able to walk up to Avalon and just use it.
Right.
In fact, we do a lot of work to make sure the two things are interoperable.
Cool.
And we really, they're just as similar as possible.
Okay,
I guess.
Similar as they could be. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So the developer experience is pretty similar, but you're obviously not wrapping that using pinvoke. And right?
It's interesting. So everything's a shade of gray, right? When you get down to the details. So Windows Forms, I don't know how familiar you are with the Visual Studio 2005 or the .NET 2.0 version of Windows Forms, but they have a bunch of new controls in there, like the new data grid view and the tool strip. And if you look at the way that they implemented those, they actually are 100% managed versions of a whole new data grid stack and a whole new toolbar and a menuing infrastructure, and all of that's written on managed code. And they're still creating at the underlying level a bit of User 32 code, but they have a lot of new technology in there. But
a lot less is what you're saying.
A lot of new technology with a lot less dependencies on unmanaged code.
Got it.
And it sounds like the average mortal developer is never going to get anywhere near that deep down.
No. The average mortal developer, from what they see, ever since .NET 1.0, they see a managed view of the platform, and that's what they see, right?
Yeah. So that means all of the Win32 API is going to get caught up in this in the proper managed environment.
That's the plan, yeah.
I guess the reason that I brought it up and why I'm so interested is because if I'm running like sol.exe, solitaire, right, or something that's obviously User 32 on, let's say, Longhorn, somewhere a Windows API call has to be handled, and what is going to handle that? Is there going to be is User 32 going to run in some environment where, or is it going to be completely rewritten? You know what I mean?
Well, we really feel that Solitaire is the premier application for Longhorn.
No, I thought it was Notepad.
It is by far the most used application in Windows, and we're going to do huge innovations in Solitaire. Actually,
did you see Rory's post on Notepad?
Oh no, we've already written a new Notepad, and it rocks. Let me tell you, it can render text like nobody's business.
Yeah, Rory did a post where he broke protocol and showed a new Notepad for Longhorn, and it had a drop shadow under the icon.
Yeah, he's gotten in some trouble for that. We reported him to Evangelism.
Leaking secrets.
Yeah, that's going back to the posting corporate secrets on their blog. We're going to prevent that in the future. No, actually, if you go to sellsbrothers.com, Chris Sell's website, he actually did a very cool version of Solitaire using Avalon, showing off some of the new vector effects and things like that you can do. It's very cool.
Okay, so getting back to the question, what happens underneath when I run a obviously unmanaged program in Longhorn?
It runs the exact same code it used to run.
Okay.
So Longhorn is 100% compatible with every previous version of Windows, right? I mean, it's as compatible as XP was with Windows 2000. I mean, we are adding new features to the platform. We're not going and taking things away.
I know, but is user 32 rewritten from the bottom down at all?
No, not at all. No.
Okay.
That's actually why in some ways, why we had to create Avalon was because you can't go and rewrite user 32 and have any hope of
Thank you for clearing this up for me, because I've been losing sleep over this. I actually had the impression that you guys were totally rewriting the Windows API so that you could call it with the same code, could run binary code, and then there would be some sort of magic hooks in there where managed code took over instead of the actual implementation. Which I just find
that's a horrible idea.
I found it really hard to believe. Yeah, isn't that a horrible idea? I mean, that's like basically
a horrible idea.
That's an interpreted.
I would not recommend that.
Interpreted OS.
Yeah, it would be zippy. It would be. I actually saw a version of the Mac OS. I think it was like 8 shell written in DHTML. And I wouldn't run that either. So.
All right, cool. Thanks. All right, so on to Indigo.
Yeah, so this is Karsten here, and I think the thing to say about Indigo is that those guys, or that aspect of the platform, has not seen anything new since PDC 2003.
Yeah.
So with Avalon, you had the PDC, but then for MSDN subscribers, there was a WinHEC build, and 3D was added. And then this past November, there was another build where there's new features added and tweaks happening. And so there's been incremental updates for those that are trying to stay on top of what we're doing over here in Redmond. The Indigo team, they've been kind of dark since 2003, and so this is really exciting that in just a few weeks we'll see the March CTP release of Indigo, and developers will have in their hands the latest and greatest bits of Indigo, and will start to be able to wrap their heads around what we've been up to here in Redmond.
Hey, I just want to cut in for just a second. If you guys go to shrinkster.com/440, that's 44 orangutan, you'll actually get that wonderful dynamic HTML Mac OS 8
really?
horrible thing that's absolutely terrifying. So, but that's all.
Folks, do yourself a favor and check out our friends' Data Dynamics website, datadynamics.com, makers of ActiveReports.net. Simple, powerful, and cost-effective reporting for Windows Forms and ASP.NET. Very nice stuff. You compile the reports right into your application, ship them with your assemblies. Has all the great features you come to expect in a reporting engine. And you can use ActiveX controls right in the reports, too. So, great stuff. Data Dynamics has been an excellent sponsor of .NET Rocks for a long time. They deserve a little bit of your love and attention. So go check them out at www.datadynamics.com. So what I know about Indigo is it's supposed to replace all of the different ways that software talks to software with one universal API, right?
One ring to bind them all.
I don't know if I'd necessarily make that comparison.
No, it definitely is about unification. The way I'd really put it is, if you look at Microsoft and what we've released as far as distributed computing technologies, even if you look at, forget some of the things we did in the unmanaged stack. In the managed stack, we had a number of them, whether it was .NET Remoting, whether it was ASP.NET Web Services, whether it was things like system.messaging or enterprise services. And we forced developers to make choices and I'm going to choose .NET Remoting instead of ASMX, or I'm going to choose enterprise services instead of something else. And what Indigo is about is, at a real tactical level, all of those teams are in one building under one person and building a common framework. And it truly does bring all those together. So it's less about making choices than about a common framework. The other thing that Indigo is very much about is, if you look at those other four technologies, they each had pros and cons, and they each had where some of them abstracted you away from the underlying technologies such that you couldn't get at certain things that you may have wanted to as developers, and other of those technologies that perhaps got you too much into the weeds than you necessarily wanted.
Yeah.
One of the core kind of tenets of the Indigo framework is that you plug in where you want to plug in, and you're really able to either get very close to the metal and override how your applications interact, or you can take advantage of a very powerful programming model that really abstracts you from a lot of things that you may not want to be dealing with, like cryptography, like security, like transactions. So, in a nutshell, that's what this is about.
Okay. So I know I'm the Indigo guy. I know all I care about is blinking lights.
And this is
Chris Anderson.
Okay.
And but I have to say, I think Indigo is much simpler than that, right? It's the new COM, right? It's about building modular software and having services that can communicate. The rest of the stuff is the details of the plumbing, right?
When I hear somebody say it's the new COM, why do I get a shiver?
And there's silence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's because we're all shivering.
Chris, you're the Avalon guy. What's going on over here?
Yeah, I thought you were the Avalon guy.
So I had this opportunity. So I took this long drive. I went up to a conference, and I took this long drive, and I spent a bunch of hours with Dawn on the way home. And we were chatting in the car, and we were talking about how Avalon and Indigo really are these two halves of this equation of how you're building this stuff. And it's really this, Indigo is giving you this way of modularizing your software, and basically it's something that we tried to do with COM, but COM was much too complex and had way too many rules about how it represented stuff binary in memory, and it didn't use any sort of protocols or standards that you could go in a reasonable way cross machine boundaries or anything like that, right? So we kept kind of bootstrapping it and doing decom and all these other things. And really, Indigo is this attempt to look back at it and go, well, what's the right place to put these boundaries, where to put messages and how to have services work? And then there's a bunch of protocol goo in there, like the fact that, you can just slap a transaction in and security and all that other stuff. But really, that's the protocol goo. It's not the fundamental thing is modular software, right, and service orientation.
Okay.
So I don't know. That's
okay. No, I get it.
From a UI guy, that's what I think about it.
Yeah, I guess I think about components just in general in that way now with Framework 1.1. So it's like components plus or on steroids or however you want to say that, right?
Yeah, it's taking the stuff we did with WYSI and with ASMX and the things that we got started in .NET and with enterprise services and really coming up with a rational way of programming those things.
I guess the thing that's coming to mind the most as an analog or an analogy is a stream. Where a stream is a sort of a generic interface for I/O. But the goo underneath is what really makes things happen. Is that sort of a good analogy?
I think that's a pretty good analogy, and it's the stream for arbitrary components in your system.
Yeah, and one of the things that they pick up quite nicely is .NET Remoting has this notion of channels, where you can have the component flows through different channels and things happen to it as it flows through that channel, and that metaphor is very much picked up by Indigo, so that as your message, as it were, needs to go through a different channel to plug in its security or its reliability or its serialization and deserialization, you, as we're talking about components, you add channels as you want to add them. And if you need more channels, you add more channels. And as you don't need, you don't. And that model is at the heart of Indigo, where as an architecture developer, you have the kind of power to add those channels or not, depending on your scenario.
Now, I don't expect you to recite code, but how would the code look? I mean, in architecturally for something like that, if I wanted to plug in a channel, is it done through inheritance, through interfaces, through attributes, all the above?
Oh, the attribute model is the main one that Indigo is very interested in, but they also have a config model that's very powerful too. So I'd say attributes and config are the two main ways that this happens. So, for instance, one thing that's really nice is that you can attribute something, and when you combine these two, where you have the ability to say, I want security, and then at the config level, you can make changes very dynamically as to what security model you're using. So are you using Windows security because you're in an intranet environment, or are you using X509 security? And your code doesn't change because you're just plugging in different security models.
Do we have plenty of UI to read and write those config files?
Silence.
No, tell me you have UI.
I don't think it's their problem.
Well, I
hate
don't know,
config files,
Carson,
man.
if you know. I just know that on WYSI 3.0 for WIDBE timeframe, they've got great config file editors for all of the policy-related stuff around WYSI messages. This is Carter speaking. Do you know whether they've got similar kind of instrumentation on the plate for Indigo?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen. I can't speak to the final product plans. I've seen some really nice prototypes, and so we'll see.
Yeah.
So I mean, management is top of mind for those guys.
This is the real reason you guys have rewritten Notepad, right?
It's so I just don't want to make any promises here, but I know management is top of mind.
I know that you guys are really doing a lot with configurators. Configuration UI, and it looks really good in WIDBE, by the way.
Yeah, the ASP.NET stuff is really nice.
Oh, man. Sweet. Hey, Jeff.
Hey there.
Not Jeff, our Jeff, but Jeff Sandquist. What's up with the mustache thing, man? Come clean.
I don't know. I was trying to see if anybody besides my mom reads my weblog, and was pleasantly surprised this morning when I made a post last night. I'm trying to decide, I've got a mustache. I've had one since I was 16, and
never shaved it?
Looks a little bit too old. So I put a post to see if I should cut it off. My wife wants me to keep it, and put a picture up, and lo and behold, I guess I got more than 6 people that read my weblog, and they're all voting on whether I should take it off or not.
And what's the consensus?
It's scary. First of all, it's scary that people are commenting, but I'd say about 80-90% think I should just get over it and cut it off. The 70s are over.
Oh,
man. Jeff, it seems to me that the moustache is actually perhaps one of your most popular blog entries ever. So, perhaps people are actually saying, they want to see a moustache blog. I haven't seen any moustache blogs anywhere.
Some guy has started a group of people that are webloggers with mustache. If you scroll down, there's a comment and he links to it, and in the trackbacks, it's a guy that has started up a group of people that are bloggers that have mustaches. I mean, Doc Searles is in there, a number of fellow, and I think that's pretty interesting. But I'm going to get
PDC then, definitely. We need a bird of the feather at the PDC. We can have mustaches developers.
Jeff, you said that was pretty interesting.
What did I say was pretty interesting?
The fact that there's a group of bloggers with mustaches and they hang out together.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Maybe I don't know. I'm thinking I'm going to cut it off. I think
you're going to give up your membership in that exclusive blogging club.
That exclusive blogging club. I'm going to do it. Another guy says, "Hey, I've had one for 20 years too, and I'm trying to make the decision. Thanks. Let me know how you make out." And he's going to shave his off if I do it as well too.
That's some serious baggage there.
Yeah,
but if it doesn't work out, Jeff, would you tell him that, or would you say, "Yeah, cut it off"?
Well, I tell him to grow it back again. It's facial hair. But what are some of the interesting comments? Heather, she wrote something I think that was pretty interesting.
Well, we should kick it up a notch and ask anyone who wants to leave a comment for Jeff to go to shrinkster.com/44p, and you can add a comment and vote yay or nay. And you should definitely wait before you shave it to hear what the .NET Rocks audience thinks about this very important issue.
Yeah.
Of our
Heather
times.
just told me to shave it or grow a goatee and thin it out just a bit. I'd also cut your hair a bit shorter, like Anderson Cooper, and it will make you look younger. A lot of different ones in here. So,
you've not shaved since you were 16. Your mustache?
I have not shaved my mustache off since I was 16. I think a number of years ago I had a goatee as well, and I decided to shave that off, and I just left the mustache.
Obviously, you're going to way too tame at parties.
When the Village People were popular, you had a mustache? Is that what you're saying?
When the Village People were popular, I was in the 5th grade. I did not. I was probably pretending to grow a mustache back then, but no.
Okay. You say you haven't cut it off since then, but have you at least trimmed it, or is this the same mustache?
I have trimmed my mustache. Or otherwise I'd have a beard. I think it wouldn't be I'd look like the guys off of ZZ Top.
Fu Manchu. Yeah.
No, I don't know. I think it's time to shave it off. I think it's time for a little bit of difference.
What if you get half of exactly half of the people say keep it on and exactly half say shave it off? What will you do then?
I'm thinking I'm just going to shave off half of it anyway. Just say, hey, I couldn't make up my mind.
Jeff, I think what we should do is that at the PDC, right after Bill's keynote, you should come up on stage and we should shave it on stage.
There you go.
Riveting content.
We will do a little campaign so everyone knows what the heck you're doing up there, in advance. And so when Bill leaves the stage, they won't all file out. But, you'll be up there. Bill will walk off. You'll shake hands. And, he'll be off. You'll be walking on.
Well, I don't know why you wouldn't try to talk Bill into shaving off Jeff's mustache on stage.
Now you're talking.
Bill could. that would be an accomplishment.
There we go.
All right. Well, if I could bring the conversation back to Indigo for a minute. Although I'd love to talk about your mustache for the rest of the show. That'd be cool.
Now you're freaking me out.
Yeah. All right. I really wouldn't. All right. I'm sorry. I'm just being polite there, man. So somebody, I think it was Carter, just posted a link to a video that Ari Bixhorn and Eric Rudder did on Indigo. Right.
Just because I thought it was a great illustration of Indigo. When Karsten was talking about the simplicity of just kind of decorating code with attributes that change the behavior of it. I know you were asking about configuration tools and things, but even just in Notepad, which is what the demo is using, you see how simple it is to add things to the way that the messaging's happening. It's a great video to check out.
Let me just give you the URL. It's shrinkster.com/44q. If you hadn't noticed, we use shrinkster.com. We use shrinkster.com so much that when you go to Shrinkster, they actually have a .NET Rocks link to us, and a Mondays link, and those are 2 out of 3. So they really, really like us. I guess we drive a lot of. But so this was a talk, keynote given at VS Live, I guess.
Right, and it's a scenario that's similar to the one that we did at PDC around devices that are hooked up to monitors, and this one is based on a lot of work that we're doing with partners exploring how you take things like real-time CPU monitoring and extend that outside of the walls of a hospital so that you can have kind of expertise drawn from a wide geographical area. So, you could be a regional rural hospital and still have expert Johns Hopkins doctors, taking a look at you. So really cool stuff that the messaging enables, and it's depicted in that demo.
Getting back to the code for a second, are you guys trying to make it so that you can just have generic code working with objects as if they were just regular in-memory objects, and then just wave some attributes and some config stuff around, and suddenly they're remote and everything just works? Is that the plan, or do you actually have to code for it? For Indigo?
I think the plan from really this is true of both Avalon and Indigo is to allow you to get as close as you want, or to be abstracted as much as you want. And the thing that strikes me the more I look at these two platforms, both of them, is that they truly are platforms in the sense that these are both technologies that we aren't pigeonholing developers. We aren't providing you with some features that you use, but we're truly providing these deep platforms that we're not really sure how people could potentially use them. We don't know what the UI possibilities are with Avalon. We're not prescripting a way for you to have a server talk to a client, or a client talk to a client, or a server talk to a server. But we're providing this kind of deep infrastructure, really well thought out infrastructure, for you to either take over the plane yourself, or to let some of the plane go on autopilot and take advantage of a lot of work that we've done.
That's a really great
I was just looking at an internal site that did some analysis purely on the .NET assemblies that we're shipping. And, you look at Avalon Indigo, there's something like, in combination, 2,700 new types, new CLR types, and something when you add up the methods, the events, the properties, something like 24,000 new methods, types, and properties, events, and whatnot. So these are deep, rich platforms, again, where you have the power to do a ton, and we're just really excited to give this platform, put this platform in the hands of developers and let them innovate, let them create things. You look back to something like the Win32 API and Windows 95, where people have just done amazing things that we could have never even imagined, and that's what these platforms are about, is to really empower people to do things productively and great things on our platform.
Yeah, like that SWAT the Penguin game. That was brilliant. That was really...
just to be explicit about one thing, though, this is Chris, is the way that you specify the data that flows between the two sides of a service, between two services, is explicit, right? That's actually one of the tenets of service orientation, is that boundaries are explicit.
Yeah.
So if you're sending data across the wire.
That's good.
And so basically there's, a service contract and a data contract that specify how you permit data. And then you take the schema and you share that between the two sides of the service, not the implementation of that code. And so you really only have to agree on the schema across the wire to share the data with two sides of the service.
Yeah. And then there's policy, of course.
Yeah, there's lots of, the policy-based compatibility to determine, one side says, I want this kind of security, I want this kind of encryption. The other side says, well, I support these ones. And they kind of do a little handshake and figure out what the right path is to go between the two pieces.
That brings up a really good tangent here, which is SOA, service-oriented architecture. When I'm talking to people, user groups, classes, wherever, a group of programmers, and I say, how many people have heard of SOA? I get a few hands that go up. And you guys have obviously thought about this quite a lot in Indigo. What are your thoughts about that? Is this something that we're actually absolutely going to have to go in this direction if we're going to be developing the software of tomorrow, or is this like an option?
I think part of what we were talking about before is, are you aware of object location? Are you aware of what data is passing? All of these things that we ran into as problems in the early days of languages like Smalltalk or with COM and trying to make that into DCOM. Yeah. I think just the scenarios that everybody wants to pursue require that service-oriented model. You can't do it architecturally without having those boundaries explicit, like Chris was saying, the contracts explicit.
Right.
So it's kind of, regardless of whether you are kind of doing consultant speak on how to do an SOA enterprise, just fundamentally...
That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, see, I personally, I've been really turned off on the SOA statement because it makes it imply that there's actually this magic thing that you can be to be service-oriented. And it just... Service orientation is more like, what aspects of service orientation do you use to build your modular system?
Yeah.
Right. If you think about, it was funny. I was talking with some folks on a different team, and they were describing the system they had, and they were using all sorts of different names about the modular part of this and this thing and this thing. And I started breaking it down and asking them questions about, well, who knows about which and which portions of your application are shared. And when I got down to it, it was like basically they were doing all of the aspects of service orientation, but they were doing it in a completely different way than most people would do. But it's really this notion of, when you start breaking down a system into components, into modular pieces, and you need some form of isolation between them, service orientation and taking aspects of service orientation into your application, I think, is just kind of the logical way to go. And, this is the thing that, books like Design Patterns and lots of the kind of systems out there really kind of follow this today already.
I agree. It's kind of like people coming up to you as a Visual Basic developer and say, hey, do you know about View Model Controller? And you're like, well, no, because you've been using it, the whole time. It's like something that is just inherently architecturally. It's
interesting. MVC, the Model View Controller stuff, is something near and dear to my heart, right? So in Avalon, we spent a huge amount of time thinking about how to do rich data visualization, how to take, these messages or whatever you get from somewhere and try to display them. And logically, the thing we knew that we needed to do was this separation of the display from the data, from the controls, so that we could, let people do this kind of very dynamic and very rich UI. And the alternatives out there right now, most of the people who implement this do this very, very heavyweight kind of in-your-face MVC model. And we sat back and basically just kept hammering on it. How can we simplify it? How can we make it be very transparent to the developer? We want that kind of VB model where you build stuff using data binding and things like that without ever having to really understand that under the covers there's this rich separation that you can leverage if you need it.
Let's change gears a little bit here. I wanted to talk about XAML and just see where the state of that is in all the development.
XAML's good.
XAML good.
We like it.
XAML good.
Is there a standard that we agreed on yet that we're sticking to?
So we're still developing the XAML kind of. There are two halves to XAML, right? There's XAML, the language specification, which is I like to think of it as a XML CLR binding, right? How do you take a bunch of CLR objects in memory? How do you represent those in markup? How do you take their properties? How do you build the relationships between those objects? And so there's this language aspect of the XAML spec. And then there is all the Avalon types, all the rich components that really that do all the runtime, the look, and then those can be persisted into XAML. So the XAML language spec, when you pick up the March CTP build, there's a huge number of changes to how XAML, the language, works, as well as a lot of changes to the Avalon object model, which manifests itself in the markup. And so we're still actively developing it. There will be more changes to the spec after the March CTP build, and there will be so we're just moving forward on that.
Cool. And people have often asked, and I know I often get people ask me about the schema for XAML, and people often seem to think that we're going to have like an XSD that is the canonical representation of everything you could possibly put in a XAML document. And Chris kind of nailed it when he highlighted that XAML is just a mechanism to represent objects. So if you think of how we do Windows Forms design today, you go into Visual Studio, you drag some stuff on with the designer, and it produces this huge bunch of stuff hidden away in a region with big kind of warning signs, in kind of bold letters. Don't edit this stuff. Don't go there. This is full of dragons, and if you touch this, then you're on your own. Visual Studio may dump you like a used piece of something. So XAML is really a bit of an approach to try and make that designer experience a lot more straightforward and a lot more accessible to other environments. So with XAML, basically what you're doing is you're representing that construction of a bunch of objects and the properties that go within those objects just in an XML format, which just makes it a little bit more compact for starters. But because
it's always been text, so now you're just tagging it as well.
In an FRM file, for example.
Yeah, that's right. And of course that means that it's very toolable. You can load it up with any editor that can parse XML and programmatically manipulate it or work with it in a way that you choose. So the general kind of focus of XAML in that way is to enable you to create any kind of object you like. And of course, it might be a custom control you've created. It might be something you've installed that provides a control that you can embed in your object. So the very notion of an XSD for every element you might put in XAML is to a certain extent redundant. There's actually a namespace for XAML, and there's a definition of the basic structure of XAML. But fundamentally, you could the schema that canonically represented a XAML document would pretty much be the same as the schema for an XML document. There's almost no end to what you could put there in terms of the tags themselves. Now,
we are thinking of shipping a schema for XAML, and it'll basically be a root element that will say XSD:any.
I was just actually thinking exactly that. I was also considering the idea that you might create templates around what subsections of XAML you want to use, or for a given application, or perhaps some rules on what controls go together and so on, but that would be a subset. Yeah, I think you're never going to see the full potential until we get a version of Studio that works with it as well as we expect Studio to work.
The other thing, is that the way that it's designed to operate is as I mentioned, in this kind of toolable, editable fashion, and the structure is such that you can really separate out the code that handles events and things like that away from the actual design of the object, just like with something like ASP.NET. So the long-term...
I always like to compare it more to the VBFRM files, which I think Carl's familiar with.
Uh-huh.
There's actually, we've been doing declarative UI for a really long time in our platform, and VBFRM files, they actually have this separation, and ASP.NET's doing it also, and we're doing it also. I mean, it's this idea that's been around for a really, really long time of the separation between the view and the
Just
the
that you
code,
didn't want us writing FRM files with Notepad before.
It's,
most people don't.
Just because you can doesn't make it a good idea. But you almost get the sense that there's going to be a conjunction here where XAML is going to be a platform, language, tool set, agnostic way to describe a UI.
I mean, it depends on how you interpret that word agnostically, but certainly in terms of providing designers with a great environment to build, punchy user interfaces. That the idea that a designer could work on the XAML file and could work out a linear gradient brush and define the various different structures and elements and make a really pretty interface, and then a developer can come alongside and work on the code that sits behind that. It really starts to define this new whole role. And for me, that's the real promise of Avalon, the ability to create these really rich, exciting new user interfaces, things that would be really hard to do in today's technology, and binding together 3D and animation. You can build these really tactile kind of experiences. One of the demos that we've been playing around with internally at the moment is basically just modeling a CD case. And, you go somewhere like Amazon today and really you're just clicking backwards and forwards between fairly static pages. Wouldn't it be neat if you could really almost browse a shelf in kind of virtual real time, and you could just pick out a CD by clicking on the side of the CD, and the CD kind of pops out in 3D, and you could open it and you could click on it, and you could see the track listing by spinning the case round, and you could open it up and look at the cover art on the CD itself. It's that kind of really different user experience that I think makes XAML so exciting, because you can build these kind of things that you would just never be able to do without writing a shed load of DirectX code today.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of being able to have a CD case that I can open and move that looks right and has all the art on it and so forth, which you can do today. It's just Amazon wouldn't do it. It's too much load. You'd be shifting bitmaps back and forth by the ton to make that happen. To come up with a language that describes that a little more easily, and then the rendering naturally happens on the client anyway, is a better solution, and it offers a lot of possibility.
There was also a great demo you showed at the PDC about that used Macromedia. I think it was Flash or Director, or maybe even, I can't remember what it was, but there was some Adobe After Effects, yeah. Really intense stuff going on with video. It was like a real-time audio monitoring thing or video. I can't remember. What was it?
It was real-time stock quotes, all stylized.
Stock quotes, yeah.
But I think the point that demo was making that we haven't brought out as strongly is the fact of XAML being toolable is less we expect designers to go be hacking XML than we expect the tools that designers know and love, like Adobe products, like what any product might be. They stay in that tool, and then their tool just provides a plugin that emits that XAML code. And so, because tools are very capable of emitting some type of declarative format like XAML. So that's really where we see things going, is developers staying in the tools they know and love, creating really great UI, and then just handing that off to the developer to wire up. So you don't have this sort of lossy experience where the designer creates this really great UI in a tool like Photoshop, and they hand it off to the developer, and the developer says, "What? You want me to build that? Forget it."
Or even that it's just that it's impossible to build it. You lay it out in Adobe and in Photoshop today, and you just have no idea. What are the bounds that you have to live within?
Yeah, what are the active parts of that set of images?
Right.
So
we want to really empower the designer to own his piece instead of getting this really lossy experience.
And I think, my experience dealing with large web architectures as well is it's one thing to create the UI, hand it to a developer, and have him code it. But then when the UI needs to be updated, to be able to hand that now code-laden UI back to the art guy and have any hope of it surviving in any useful form. Properly encapsulating the separation is going to facilitate that iterative process that's going to go on as apps last some time.
Well, yeah, it's a great point. It really is. There's a really one-way street right now in the kind of development flow, and what we're trying to do is make it a two-way street. So it just goes back and forth.
I would go a step further, which is I think it's more than just the two-way street. It's more than just that developer-designer thing. But, sometimes I think that when we describe and when we talk about designers, we don't really give them the credit that they deserve, because what they really are doing is they're building your user experience and being able to give them tools that let them directly edit and manipulate that user experience without having to go through this pipeline of a developer really enables them to be way more effective at their job, right?
Absolutely.
You talk to designers and they talk about things like, well, I'm not quite sure if this design is going to work. I really have to get it built to see how it's going to work, to see if it's going to be intuitive to the user, if it's going to feel the right way, if it's going to give that, that tactile feedback in the right way. And now they can just build it and do it themselves. They don't have to necessarily always, kind of rely on this developer to convert their Photoshop into a live thing so that they can then turn around and say, oh, no, actually I was wrong. It shouldn't look like that.
It's almost like we could get to the point where the developer can sit down, give him a bunch of tools, say, here are the functions that we ultimately need to do. Now go stick a UI on this and do what you want.
Exactly.
Work the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a strange day, very different from where we are right now.
The other thing that's kind of interesting that we've been thinking about a lot is that, we've been sort of speaking almost in a binary case of there's designers and there's developers, and some shops that's true, but more and more today we see, the designer that can do a little bit more scripting, a little bit more interactivity, and you see the developer that cares a little bit more about how their app looks, and there starts to be a blur, and I think Avalon also really hits that sweet spot as well, where we see it as a gradient.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right that people are becoming more savvy. There's different levels of things, and there's more and more you want to push into different categories and split skill sets up. And so tools that will facilitate creating those new delineations are really going to make a difference. We're going to get close to the end of the show here. I know there's one question on a lot of people's minds, which is, what are we going to see in the next PDC coming up there, Steve?
Well, let's see. Let me do the short plug. The next PDC is the week of September 12th. This time it'll start on a Tuesday, September 13th, but we'll have 1 or 2 days of pre-cons, maybe Sunday and then Monday, September 12th. Lots and lots of details on Avalon, Indigo, Longhorn. Longhorn has other APIs besides the ones we've just been talking about. Some APIs that are built into Longhorn. A bit about Longhorn Server and a bunch of other things that we're not really ready to talk about right now. But it'll be sort of what I think we all had a lot of fun at the last PDC. Yeah. We did some things differently, and we tried out we did some experimentation, tried out some new things, and we're going to be, trying a bit of that as well this time. Last time we had Birds of a Feather. Karsten ran that last time. It was really the first time we had done anything like that at Microsoft Conference.
And went very well, as I understand.
Yeah, and I think Karsten, you had fun doing that, right?
Oh yeah, that was great.
Yeah, so you signed up again.
Power to the people.
So the Birds of a Feather were kind of new, and we had fun doing that, and think it worked out. We did on the fourth day, we did the panels and the security symposium and the architecture symposium. Those were experiments. We got some good feedback on that. Mm-hmm. We'll be looking for more feedback on it. But the main thing about the PDC will be the same as before, which is really deep dives on stuff that's coming down the road, and the kind of things we've been talking about here. Just imagine lots of sessions about all this stuff. We'll be handing out as much code as we can.
I was going to say, you're going to try to do the typical synchronize a drop to the PDC.
Yeah, I mean, we have an internal rule on the PDC team: no bits, no glory. So if you want to talk at the PDC, you got to hand out bits. If you're a product team and you want to go deep on your stuff, if you want more than one breakout, you got to give us bits to give to attendees.
Well, that's what attendees want. They want to come home with code.
Yeah, and the CTP thing, since the last PDC, Microsoft has gotten into the swing of CTPs. It's been a big part of WIDBE. It's been a big part of. It will be a big part of Avalon and Indigo, and so the community thing has lived on past the PDC, and so the PDC is kind of becoming. It will be. There will be other reasons to go to the PDC besides just to get bits. Is really what I'm trying to say.
So, Steve, yeah, well, it's a good chance to actually meet all of you guys and talk to you and see what you're doing, and maybe actually leak some new stuff.
Yeah, and then see if Jeff shaved or not.
Yeah, or maybe half. And which half, Jeff? Which half?
Maybe I'll have to shave my hair by the time we get to PDC. I don't know.
Well, I have an important question about the next PDC, which is, this last PDC we saw a major milestone for Microsoft, which was vice presidents coding on stage. So, Steve, what can we do at the next PDC to top?
Can I? I have a suggestion, and it's actually a fantasy of mine. Can I indulge you guys for a minute?
Go ahead.
All right, so here's the PDC. So it's time for the opening, and the lights go down, and you hear Jeff go, "The opinions and viewpoints expressed in .NET Rocks at blah, 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 blah." Then the music starts. Then Richard and I come out and work the crowd into a frothing fervor, and then introduce Bill Gates and walk off. What do you think? Is that a great idea?
and then Bill codes.
There you go. And Bill's got a laptop under his arm, pops it up and says, "Watch this."
A frothing frenzy.
Yeah, you like that. Fervor, I think, was the word.
That's what Carl's is good at. He causes frenzy wherever he goes.
Yeah, I took some notes. I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Hey, the .NET Rocks BOF was fantastic.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, then Carl and I have already talked a bit about, can we do that again? And
yeah, we definitely.
I just wonder how much of Jeff can we shave?
Great.
The Shave Jeff booth. Now you're talking.
Oh my gosh.
There's got to be some sort of connecting it to the ships and slippages. Every month we slip Longhorn, then Jeff shaves another inch off.
Shave more of Jeff.
Oh, no, thank you. I think that Chris has some accountability on that. That has to come from the product team.
So we look forward to seeing you all at the next PDC, and we'll be putting more news out on the official site, and you'll see people blogging about what they're going to be talking about. We're pretty psyched about it.
Well, I have something to end with, which I want to ask each of you. What is the coolest thing you've seen on the web or tools or at Microsoft in the last week? Jeff, what's the coolest thing you've seen in the last week?
Team System, baby. It's going to be awesome as a product. And we're gearing up to ship something pretty amazing. And every time I see demos and stuff around Team System, I'm just blown away. I want it now.
Yeah, we need to do a VSTS show, no question.
Well, we will. We have one.
We'll do it.
We have one. Chris, what's the coolest thing you saw this week?
I have to say some of the new March CTP-based demos for basically Avalon that are combining all the platform technologies. Just Tim mentioned some of the 3D stuff that we're doing with the CD demo and things like that, and it's amazing stuff. And I can't wait to start posting some of it to my blog. So basically, that's I think the most amazing thing is the stuff that I'm going to post this weekend.
All right. Hey, Steve. How about you, Steve?
Well, I was going to mention that with the Steve Fawcett, he flew around the world solo. I thought that was pretty cool. But then everyone else talked about the stuff they're working on. So let me get back to you.
Yeah, don't say Martha
the PDC
Stewart.
Stuff is a lot of what I've been thinking about these days. And, it's not been some of the things we've been talking about. We've been thinking about blogging. I've started a blog, although I haven't been that rigorous in writing to it. But definitely we're thinking about all these things at the PDC about the basic stuff, the basic content that we're really excited to be talking about, and then all the other stuff that makes it a big event. So that's really all that's in my mind these days.
You're Mr. PDC. Yeah. Carter, how about you?
I've had no visible excitement. It's all been...
Wow.
Tell us about the most exciting meeting you've had this week, Carter.
Yeah,
Carter.
All I've been doing is logistics this week. We're just getting ready for the Beta 2 WIDBE stuff, and it's just been logistics, nothing to report.
And have you seen any cool toys or anything?
I mean, there's a cool toy that I use that's actually Avalon-based. I use it every single day. It's a app that lets you visualize the entire Active Directory. So, you're trying to figure out which group you're talking to on the phone, and you can easily just drill up into the hierarchy and see kind of bubbles in 3D as they.
Hey, I saw that.
It's very, very cool. I use it every day.
I saw that. That's NASA Derwind, right?
80 win.
Right.
Okay.
It's a cool Avalon app. Maybe Karsten or Tim will get it out as part of.
Yeah, we're hoping to get it on Channel 9 here soon.
Cool.
Oh, good.
Awesome.
How about you, Karsten?
The latest thing I've seen, this is Karsten. So I just installed the SDK for the March CTP that has all the Avalon and Indigo documentation and samples. But the coolest thing is if you go to, if you have to kind of navigate to it on the hierarchy, but there's a single zip file where you can install every single sample that Avalon and Indigo has, and boom, every sample is right at your fingertips to run, and it's just really cool to see.
Awesome.
So I would check that out. I was excited when I found the zip file, so you don't have to, install each sample individually.
Yeah. Okay, Sir Tim, how about you?
Well, I think the coolest thing I came across actually this week wasn't a Microsoft thing, but it was this 3D desktop replacement. I don't know if any of you guys have seen Sphere XP. It's just so cool. It basically is something that just takes over your Windows XP desktop, and it turns your windows, instead of being just flat 2D objects, it turns them onto 3D entities that reside somewhere within a sphere on a virtual sphere on your screen. And you just basically sort of drag them around. You can change the Z order. You can move them forward, backwards. You can put them behind you. It's kind of that kind of Minority Report kind of thing where Tom. Was it Tom Cruise? I'm losing the plot here. I'm well known for not knowing much about movies, but that kind of moving the windows around, it's just very, very neat. So
I actually did install that a couple of weeks ago, and it would have been cool if I could actually use the windows while they were in 3D. But you can't do that.
Yeah, that's what happens when you try to write something, I guess, that sits outside of the shell itself. But,
right. So,
gives
but apparently,
people a bit of a flavor of what you can do with a 3D user interface. So that's why I thought it was cool.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, guys, it's been a fun show. Thanks for checking in with us. And
thanks for having us.
Yep. Oh, it's always fun.
Thank you.
And thanks for finally having me, Carl.
Yes, and Chris, maybe you can come back and do your own show sometime in the future. Well, listen, on behalf of myself, Jeff Maciolik in the Sound Room, Richard Campbell in Vancouver, British Columbia, all the fans in the chat room, all you guys at Microsoft, keep doing what you do. We love you. Talk to you later.
Time boy, life is hard.